Welcome back to the Malvern College podcast, where we bring together the community to explore more about life inside and outside the school from the point of view of pupils, staff and parents. Each week we'll be talking to one of the members of the community to find out more, to hear their stories and to get a little deeper into the fabric of life around the school. In this episode, we're talking to Tom Newman, Senior Admissions Advisor and Teacher of Chemistry. He'll be talking about being a passionate educator, emotional and cultural intelligence, and we might even hear a little Aristotle in there too. So come with me as we step into this conversation.
Tom Newman is our guest today. He arrived at Malvern College in 2007 and since then has had a variety of roles, including Master in charge of cricket and Master in charge of rackets. He is now Senior Admissions Advisor as well as a Teacher of Chemistry. Hello, Tom.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's lovely. So can we talk about your current role first? Your admissions role brings you into contact with many prospective pupils and their families. So what advice do you give them? What does your role entail?
Well, first of all, I'm very much sort of at the front of the school meeting prospective parents, especially parents of boys and girls in Year 9. And I'm here to give advice basically on what is it like to apply to a senior school. And one of the key things I would always say is that the child should be at the heart of all the decisions the parents make. And it's not necessarily about whether the parents like the school, it's what fits and works for their child, because it is their child that is going to be spending the next 5 years of their life at the school. So they must be happy. And I'm a big believer that happy children are the long-term highest achievers.
Did you find that everybody's a little bit apprehensive? I mean, it's a big thing, isn't it, the choice?
It's a massive decision, and the transition between what might be a cosy little prep school to what can be seen as a huge senior school, it can be quite daunting. But I genuinely feel here at Malvern we are very welcoming, and the transition therefore from the prep school to the senior school is that much smoother. We encourage parents to visit the school with their child and to get a vibe for the school. And I think that's really important. And I will always say to the parents to talk to as many current pupils as they possibly can on their visit and just sort of hear things from the horse's mouth, if you like.
Which is valuable, invaluable really, isn't it?
Absolutely, because they are the current pupils will be unrehearsed in what they say, and then the parents will speak to house masters, house mistresses, and they'll meet the headmaster. And again, I would encourage them to ask as many questions as possible surrounding the academic life, the life in the music school, in the theatre, on the sports pitches, all those sorts of things, which really contribute to the full life and the full education that their child will get.
I'm presuming it's a fairly lengthy process.
Yes, it is. I mean, it starts in Year 6 probably, and the parents will make contact with us in Year 6, and that parent journey with their child goes from Year 6 through to Year 7 to Year 8, and then obviously they join us in Year 9. So we have sort of points of contact with the parents and the pupils in those 3 years before they join, definitely.
So Tom, let's just move on to another of your roles that you had. I know you're obviously a very keen sportsman and you've done cricket and the rackets. But before accepting your current role, you joined the pastoral team in 2017 and then you were deputy designated safeguarding lead. Tell me what that means.
Well, it's a job that sort of followed on quite easily from what I was doing. I was a housemaster for 10 years before that role. So obviously I was working on the pastoral side of things anyway. And then to work with our designated safeguarding lead was sort of a natural progression, really. So we looked after all the safeguarding within the school. We made sure that our pupils were safe and that they were sort of contributing to the school life as well as they can in a happy environment. We had in the background, we were aware of parental situations, their life at home, and bringing their issues from home maybe into the school. So we were in close contact with the parents as well, obviously, to try and ensure that everything they did at Malvern was, they were as happy as they possibly could be.
Now, safeguarding is a word that's bandied around quite a lot in the media these days.
Absolutely.
Are there sort of legal obligations on you as Malvern College to ensure that all the legalities are actually dealt with in terms of safeguarding?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a minefield, but at the same time, it is a crucial part of the school. And actually, inspectors will go through our safeguarding policies and guidelines with a fine-tooth comb, because it's an absolute necessity that we are running a school that creates a safe environment in which those children can grow up.
And do you have sort of structures and procedures in place so that if a young person does have concerns, they are easy to be able to discuss?
Absolutely. I mean, we have a very strong network of support here, and that runs from the classroom teacher through to the child's tutor, through to the child's housemaster or housemistress, and then through to the designated safeguarding lead, or indeed it was me as the deputy DSL as well. So there are a huge number of members of staff that the children can talk to, about any issues that they might have.
And do you find it works in practice?
Yeah, it tends to, yes, and largely because I think the people in those positions are non-judgmental, and they are here to support those children in everything they do. Even if they've made a mistake, they're still there to support the child. And that, I think, if the children know that, then, they will be more likely to open up that much more.
From the other side of this, I'm kind of pressing you a little on this because I'm fascinated by it, and as I say, it is in the media.
Absolutely.
From the other side of it, if a child has a concern perhaps about a master that's been a little bit too avid, a little bit too strict, is there a procedure for them to be able to talk that through?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. They would go to the DSL, or first of all, probably they would speak to the head of department, who would then liaise closely with the DSL, and meetings would be set up. And it is absolutely the case that we respect the privacy and confidentiality of that child until it's necessary that we pass on any information. So thereby we are creating a very safe environment for them to explain their fears of a master or whatever it might be.
Great. Now, I know that you're a very keen educator, and you talk about and read about, in fact, wrote an article recently about the combination of emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence and IQ. Not only that, you quoted Aristotle, educating the mind without educating the heart is not education at all. Fantastic quote. So why is this so important to the child's development at Malvern College?
I mean, first of all, that quote is one of my absolute favourites, and I think it just sort of puts things in a nutshell. And I really believe that education is not simply about learning times tables in mathematics or capital cities in geography. It's much more than that. It's sort of, what I would say is, it's developing each child's love of learning and encouraging them to be lifelong learners, if you like, with a real passion and thirst, so they can be the best version of themselves, really. And I think emotional intelligence is becoming much more important, and it relates basically to a child's ability to adapt their emotions to further their cause in what is a positive manner. Research will say that children with high emotional intelligence are much more likely to succeed. And that's probably because their entire attitude and purpose, if you like, will lead them to build strong relationships and work collaboratively in what is a positive manner. And I suppose, in short, that means they get on with people that much better. But I think almost equally important these days is cultural intelligence, and I don't think we can underestimate that. And
what does that mean?
It's cultural intelligence will sort of influence a person's ability to interact and to perform in a multicultural environment. So children who have cultural intelligence are able to work in culturally diverse environments very easily. And I think it is the key to building trust and security across nationalities. And I mean, when I was in the boarding house as a housemaster, it was great for me to place a British boy with a boy from another nationality in the same bedroom, because they can learn off each other, they can talk about different cultures, they can talk about what is acceptable in India compared to what's acceptable in England, or wherever they are in the world. And I think more now than ever before, this is so important. I think with goalposts changing almost weekly, almost daily, I should say, the more we can understand and the more we are culturally aware of different situations, the better.
How do you do that at an independent school? I mean, it's a question I've asked previously, actually, and I am interested in it because, clearly it's an independent school. Possibly a particular type of person comes to the school.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that they are culturally aware of other types of people, if you like?
Well, that's a really interesting question. We are a school which is about 30% international. So we do have a lot of, say, for example, European students. And everything we do gears ourselves towards developing children as what I would say as global citizens, with children who have a global outlook. And we run special groups like we have a Pupil Thrive group who deal with issues such as tolerance and equal opportunities, and they talk about BLM and gender related issues, all these different things that are very sort of hot topics at the moment.
Yeah.
And if we can get these children, even if they are, as you sort of alluded to, they're at an independent school, I think they have a responsibility to take what they have learned from the school and spread it in their communities, whether that is a local community or a community back home. Because, as I say, the more we can do in their formative years, I think that it's got to help the world when they're in their 20s, 30s, and in their working world.
Yes. And presumably there's not such a shock because it sounds a wonderful place to be educated at Malvern College, but clearly there is a bit of a cultural shock when you move out of it into the working world and into normality, as it were.
Absolutely. In the working world, you will be sitting at a conference table with 10 different nationalities sitting around the table. There's no doubt in that. And the world is, to sort of coin a phrase, the world is a small place, really. And people's work is becoming more global, and they're dealing with international issues much, much more. And therefore, by exposing our children to cultural differences, whether that is on an overseas sports tour or, as I said, in the boarding house, then that is only going to increase their cultural awareness. And actually, if I can just sort of tell you a story that that I think that will make my point. It wasn't so long ago I was talking to my brother-in-law who was interviewing a candidate for a job a global job at PwC, and he said to him, you're applying for this global job. What do you think is the most important language your children could learn when they grow up? And as quick as a flash, this guy said, the language is not important. What is important is that my children grow up with cultural intelligence. And I think, coming from such a massive firm as PwC, I think that speaks volumes.
Yes, yeah. It's very encouraging, inspiring, actually. Well, that brings us neatly on to the Prep School Baccalaureate, which is, I know, a programme of study that you are championing. Tell me more about it.
Well, it's people call it Prep School Baccalaureate. It's often referred to as the pre-senior baccalaureate as well. In my eyes, it is a wonderful, wonderful curriculum that sort of, in a nutshell, I suppose, enables schools to balance the various needs of subject knowledge in a way that develops individuals so that they can understand clearly how they actually learn. And again, it's a programme that will develop lifelong learners. And what I like very much about it is that it not only focuses on the academic side of life, but it focuses on what I would call the sort of transferable skills, such as communication, collaboration, leadership, which will obviously run alongside the academic curriculum. So the PSB encourages sort of what I would call deliberate learning, so the children know why they're doing it and how they must do it. And it will stretch their thinking skills, and it will stretch their sort of critical or skills of critical analysis, I think. And above all, it really encourages independent learning, and that's a catchphrase at the moment in the independent schools, independent learning. And so it will avoid the sort of spoon feeding of which some schools are guilty, I think. So it allows children to take a bit more ownership of their own learning.
Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, so they will have huge opportunity to work with their classroom teachers and discuss in a lesson the opportunities. Even if they're sort of learning about the Battle of Hastings, they will be able to discuss with their teachers opportunities for collaboration. So they might be working as a group of 4 discussing battle plans or something like that, and then they might discuss how they're going to actually communicate that and then one of them might make a presentation, and one of them might lead the group. So that all these, dare I say it, sort of softer skills, which are, I mean, they're not real softer skills, they're quite sort of very important skills, but those are becoming more and more important as they are learning. And those are the skills, I think, that sort of stand the test of time, or will stand the test of time.
Yeah. Pioneering stuff, I would say.
I think it's a brilliant curriculum. It's relatively fresh. I think it's been going for about 5 or 10 years, maybe closer to 5 years. And there are quite a few schools now who are following this programme. And we're lucky here at Malvern that we are now what we call a sort of foundation school. So we are really supporting the prep schools in their quest with the PSB programme. And it prepares children for the modern methods of teaching and modern methods of learning, and therefore it prepares them for the modern world, and it makes that transition again from the prep school to Malvern College that much easier, because here at Malvern, for example, in our year 9, we've developed a curriculum that centres around transferable skills booklet that we give to the pupils, and they take that booklet with them in every lesson, and they work very closely with their tutors in the classroom, and they discuss the opportunities for these skills like, collaboration and leadership and communication and all those kind of things, which are so very important.
I'm very much feeling that you're a great believer in holistic education.
I very much am. I don't know how you knew that. Absolutely. But holistic, I mean, to me, going back to that famous quote by Aristotle, it is, so much more than just learning the dates. I think it's developing skills for children in all areas, whether that's in the concert hall or on the sports pitches or even on the rivers of the Welsh mountains, and taking those skills that they learn back to the classroom. And those skills will be with them for life. I mean, they might well forget the Battle of Hastings was 1066, but I don't think they will forget falling out of their canoe in the Welsh mountains and finding out how to survive, kind of thing. And to me, that is equally as important as anything they will learn in the classroom. So a holistic education to me is about creating a sort of safe environment at the school in which children are comfortable to fail, in a way, and demonstrate therefore their resilience to bounce back. It's about creating an environment in which they can learn to lead and develop their self-awareness and be creative and be dynamic in everything they do.
Amazing. Tom, you're a fount of all knowledge. I would be very happy to meet you as the Senior Admissions Advisor. I would be less nervous if I was coming along to look at Malvern College. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
So that was Tom Newman. A big thank you to him for coming onto this episode of the podcast. Now, if you'd like to get to know the college even deeper, then don't forget to check out Malvern College on social. Whether it's Twitter, Instagram or Facebook, just search Malvern College. And to stay up to date with the next episode that's coming out soon, be sure to follow this podcast channel, and then when the next episode is released, you'll receive a small notification just to let you know that it's available, and that means that you don't miss it. But until then, thank you for listening to this episode, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.